Tom Thibodeau fired. New York decides to go in a different direction after they lose in the conference finals versus Indiana. What are my thoughts on it? Well, first off, I think it's crazy that for the first time in 25 years, that's as far as the Knicks have gotten. So, in my opinion, this was a successful season for the New York Knicks. A lot of people thought I was crazy when I had the New York Knicks making the NBA Finals in my bracket, because a lot of people didn't believe that they could even make it that far. Nobody thought that they would make it past Boston. Now, yes, Jason Tatum's injury kind of helped them out a little bit, but they still were a very successful team, especially considering the fact that they had a new roster. This was Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns' first season with the team, and they made the conference finals together. Now, yes, you could argue that they already had chemistry, Mikal and Jalen Brunson, because of the college thing, but it was a big risk trading for Karl-Anthony Towns, and it was something that a lot of people questioned at the moment, and now people are already questioning the future of the team with Karl-Anthony Towns. And if you didn't know, this is Karl-Anthony Towns' second team that he's been on, where Tibbs was the coach. He was coaching them in Minnesota, and both times Tom Thibodeau got fired, so you could argue Cat got him fired. And now they're already talking about the Suns being the favorite if they were to trade Cat. So let's talk about the real issue with the New York Knicks. Was it the head coach, or was it Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson together? Because that's a first-time new duo. And let's be honest, they're both not the best defenders in the world. Two very good offensive players, kind of similar to what Denver has in Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And they made it work when they won the championship in 2023. And they had great defenders around that duo. The New York Knicks also had that. They had Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Josh Hart. Now, sometimes playoffs just come down to matchups. And unfortunately, that brings me to another topic, and that is the turnover rate for NBA head coaches. It's ridiculous, and a lot of the time, it literally is because of a matchup that you have with a certain team, which is why we've seen teams like the Los Angeles Clippers in 2021 make their entire squad, maybe 2020, I forget, to try to beat the Los Angeles Lakers. Certain teams, you could say the Cavs and Warriors, used to build each other's teams with that team in their mind, thinking they would match up in the playoffs. Because sometimes there's not even much you could do as a coach. It might not even be the GM's fault, but you may just match up poorly with your opponent. Pascal Siakam gave them problems. Somebody that you would want Karl-Anthony Towns to guard, right? Well, at the start of the series, they were going with Josh Hart, and Josh Hart, who is, in my opinion, a pretty underrated defender, who is now being scapegoated because of the loss, was not a good matchup against Pascal Siakam, because Josh Hart is a small ball 4. They want Karl-Anthony Towns playing center and spacing the floor so they could play 5-out basketball and really get their offense going. But they couldn't do that versus the Pacers, and that is because Josh Hart could not guard Siakam. So that leaves Karl-Anthony Towns to do it. They tried going to the Mitchell Robinson at the 5. I mean, it did really help for a little bit, and you saw it really help versus the Celtics, but in the end, it wasn't enough. And now some people are arguing, well, he didn't experiment with that too big lineup during the regular season, so therefore he didn't do his job as a coach. But I just think that's crazy, because Mitchell Robinson was not healthy at all during the regular season. Matter of fact, he only played 17 games this season. So it kind of comes down to like the scapegoat. Somebody's got to take the fall when a lot of people get hurt, and that is just the reality of coaching or playing for a big market team. The Los Angeles Lakers, the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks. We see a lot of coaches get fired from those teams, even if they make it really far. And even if they had a 25-year conference finals drought, it doesn't matter. If the fans get hurt, somebody's got to go down. Because if the fans are hurt, you're losing money. That's how owners think. Some of these owners that are in the NBA don't even understand basketball. Now, there was also another argument about Tom Thibodeau, was that he wasn't an X and O's coach. And, Jeff Teague actually came out on a podcast. I believe it was Jeff Teague. Yeah. And he basically said Tom Thibodeau don't even be saying anything. All he says is, damn, just mad. You don't know what to say. He's just one of those Mike Malone coaches. And we've seen that Denver fired Mike Malone during the season too. Which brings me to another point. There was 3 different coaches fired in the same year, and they all coached a team that had a good record. Taylor Jenkins was doing something in the league this year that no other team was doing, and that was having offense without pick and roll. They ran a circle type of offense, and if you want to know what I'm talking about, there are videos explaining it on YouTube. Just know they ran a weird type of offense, but they were the number 2 seed in the West for a large majority of the year. And as soon as they started losing after the All-Star break and Ja Morant started getting frustrated, they gave up on them because they don't want to lose Ja Morant, and they still wanted to win, it all. But the reality is Taylor Jenkins really had the worst luck in the world the last couple seasons with injuries and still was making that team playable and winning games. He's not a bad NBA coach. Michael Malone won a championship not that long ago. He had a great team last year, almost had them as the number 1 seed again, and this year had them really good going into the playoffs too. In my opinion, during the regular season, at times, it looked like the Denver Nuggets could win the championship again. And then Tom Thibodeau got the New York Knicks to the Eastern Conference Finals, where nobody expected them to be for the first time in 25 years, and got fired. So being a coach in the NBA seems like the worst job in the world. For all the people who would be like, you should be a coach. I would never want to be a coach. Never. It just seems dumb, because as soon as things go wrong, as soon as you have a team that you don't match up well with, and it might not even be your fault because the roster's not built that way, or you might not have enough time and continuity. In this case, what New York had, they had a brand new team. Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges never even played with Jalen Brunson. I mean, Mikal did. And in the first year together, they get to the conference finals, but I guess that's just not enough. And that might just be the GM's fault. Our organization is focused on winning a championship for our fans, like I was saying earlier, and that's why we fired him, okay? Now, let's really think about what happened this offseason. Right before the season started, which you shouldn't do ever, you switch up a big part of your team and trade Julius Randle, okay, Dante DiVincenzo, who was a big part in the team prior. You're all happy because you got chemistry with the team. They all played in college. They traded them for Karl Anthony Towns. Now, what that shows me is that this GM, this president, wants to win now, and that was a win now move. But the reality is there is a such thing as chemistry. There is a such thing as fit, and you're taking a huge chance. In my opinion, this is not on Tom Thibodeau. Now, them firing Tom Thibodeau isn't going to be the worst thing in the world for them, because they could get a good coach, because the reality is there's a lot of good coaches on the market, because a lot of good coaches get fired because of presidents and GMs and owners' fault. And in my opinion, I think this is exactly what it is. Now, Tom Thibodeau is a pretty rough coach. He might be responsible for that Derrick Rose injury back in Chicago. He might be responsible for Jimmy Butler just saying, I'm never playing for the Timberwolves again, and I just refuse to even bring them up in the past. And sometimes he may be playing his players way too much, maybe is responsible for some fatigue, which is something JJ Redick took a big hit on, in round 1 this year in the playoffs. But I don't think the reason that New York lost to the Pacers is because of Tom Thibodeau. In my opinion, you go look at Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, and the Pacers saw food. They hunted those two guys, and they knew that they could play Josh Hart off the floor, and Josh Hart is such an important player to this team. And because they played him off the floor, because Thibodeau had to bench him, let's be honest, he couldn't guard Siakam no more. He had to make that decision and start Robinson. It killed all of Josh Hart's confidence, and then, the fans don't help out either, but that's what comes with especially playing for New York, a big market team. The crazy thing is they just extended him, and they owe him $30 million guaranteed, even if he's not going to be coaching for him. So this move, knowing that, makes no sense to me. But I also said the same thing about the Karl Anthony Towns trade. Like, why are they trading for Cat when they just got all of those Villanova players right back together? And I was pissed. A lot of people, why are you not reacting to Knicks games in the regular season no more? They traded DiVincenzo away, and I was really mad because I was really excited and looking forward to watching that team. In my opinion, I'm not even mad at Tom Thibodeau, although sometimes I'm like, bro, why are the starters still in when you're up 40 in a closeout game versus the Celtics, and the next round you got the Pacers? sometimes he doesn't make sense. Like, okay, what are the Knicks doing on offense? Why is it so freelance right now? Now, that's an argument that I think is valid. But in my opinion, this has to fall on the president, the GM, whoever's making these big decisions. Because you have to have some patience when you make a big trade like that. Look at the Lakers, for example. They traded for Luka Doncic because you take it. But they don't expect to win the championship, and if they don't, they just fire their coach right away. And they didn't make it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. In my opinion, sometimes it's worse to make it further and lose. And I know Draymond came out and said this today. He would rather lose in the first round than make the finals and lose. In my opinion, as an NBA head coach, if I was one coaching a very high market team and a high level team, I would want the same thing. I'd rather lose in the first round than lose in the conference finals or the finals, because for some reason, they get fired more often. I'd rather not win coach of the year, because for some reason, if you win coach of the year in the NBA, you're going to get fired. Now, let's really think about it though. Now that I've vented about everything I had to say about the situation, because I just am kind of just frustrated with how coaches take the fall for everything and the GMs, presidents don't, because they have more power. I think the Knicks can benefit from this firing because, like I was saying earlier, there are some times where that offense just looked way too freelance. And I understand you have a superstar. You want to play through your superstar. But sometimes there was no structure. Now, they did have a lot of sets that I think were really good. They were consistent. Sometimes they were, like I said, during the Pacers series, the Celtics series, they ran the same set to start the game every single time. You know, they had sets that they would go to. So it's not like he wasn't, X's and O's at all. But that being said, I think if you are going to have a team with two heavy offensive players like a Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, a Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, you kind of have to have an offensive nerd coach. And I think that's why we're seeing in Denver, they went away from Mike Malone, who was a really hard, we're trying to motivate you guys, to maybe a more analytical type of coach who's going to get their offensive sets right and make them run the right things. And I think the same thing is said for the Knicks. And there's a pattern, because when you have these tough-nosed old school coaches like Tom Thibodeau, Mike Malone, there is a culture that comes with that. And most of the time that culture is defense. Defense wins championships. And you could say OG and Mikal, Josh Hart. But they have two offensive superstars. And when I watch the New York Knicks, their identity is their offense. They want to rely on Jalen Brunson scoring. They want to rely on Cat scoring. Mikal Bridges scoring. They are not a defensive first team. And I think that's because they made that trade for Karl Anthony Towns. Because that no longer fits the philosophy of Tom Thibodeau, he has to take the fall for what the president is trying to go with. Now, I still think it could work out. I don't think the Knicks are done. I don't think they should trade Karl Anthony Towns. I think that's ridiculous. After one season, I just think people, fans, media, and especially GMs give up way too easily. Nobody has the patience in the modern NBA. But when you make a trade and you have new players on your team, you kind of have to have patience. And unfortunately, I think Thibodeau was the scapegoat. But I do not think at the same time that is the worst thing in the world for the Knicks. They could either go in one or two directions, and I think one of them is the incorrect direction. Because they chose to fire a defensive-minded, motivational type of coach, I do not think that they need to get rid of Karl Anthony Towns. In my opinion, he was either Cat or Tom. They chose Tom. Cat has to stay. If you trade Karl Anthony Towns away, it makes zero sense at all. That being said, I don't think they will. I think they're going to get a good offensive-minded head coach, and I don't know if this is real, which it probably isn't. Guarantee it's not. Steve Nash to replace Tom Thibodeau. And I know before everybody says, here we go, right? They asked Jalen Brunson this question not that long ago. This reporter asked Jalen Brunson a question. Do you think Tom Thibodeau is the guy?
Going forward, he's the same guy to lift you guys the rest of the way, that next level.
Is that a real question right now? You just asked me if I believe that if he's the right guy. Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Come on.
So Jalen Brunson, as we could see, like Tom Thibodeau, thought he was the guy, fires him. Keep in mind, Jalen Brunson's also the guy that took a pay cut to try to play with all of his friends, former teammates in college. That didn't work out. And at the same time, let's not forget, Jalen Brunson's dad is in charge of this type of stuff. And we seen the beef that DiVincenzo had. I have some resentment because they did my twin wrong. But I wanted to see New York succeed. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world firing Tom Thibodeau. I don't even know if Tom Thibodeau is ever going to coach again. I just think his style of coaching doesn't fit in the modern league. And unfortunately, he's going to take the fall for it. I do not think he's a bad coach, though, so don't ever run with that narrative. I'm not going to run with it. I just think it was the wrong fit because the GM and Jalen Brunson's dad decided to go in a different direction. But if they trade Cat, I don't know what they're thinking. Stay with Cat, get an offensive-minded head coach, and maybe, just maybe, you'll have enough to win it all. What do you guys think? Leave your voice down below in the comments. ZTAY. Peace.